I never expected my pregnancy to turn into a nightmare, but thanks to my mother-in-law, Chelsea, 59, female, I ended up spending the rest of it in the hospital, hooked up to machines, praying that my baby and I would make it. My husband, Dustin, 30, male, and I were over the moon when we found out we were expecting our first child. I, 28, female, had always wanted to be a mom, and after months of trying, we finally got the news we had been hoping for. We shared our joy with our families, and while most of them were thrilled, Chelsea took things a little too far. Chelsea had always been overbearing. She thought she knew everything about everything, especially when it came to parenting. She constantly undermined my choices, telling me how she had raised her kids and how things were better back in her day. I was prepared for unsolicited advice, but I was not prepared for what actually happened. When I was around 16 weeks pregnant, Chelsea started bringing me homemade teas and herbal remedies. She claimed they would make my pregnancy easier, help with nausea, and ensure a healthy baby. She would show up at our house unannounced, dropping off little bottles and packets and telling me I had to take them because she used them during her pregnancies. I never had a single complication. I was hesitant at first, but she was so insistent, and Dustin reassured me that his mom wouldn't do anything to harm me. I started taking the teas and supplements, thinking they were just natural remedies. At first, nothing seemed off. If anything, it felt a little better. And I thought maybe Chelsea actually knew what she was talking about. Then the symptoms started. I was constantly exhausted, way more than what seemed normal. I had dizzy spells that would come out of nowhere, leaving me unable to stand without holding on to something. My stomach felt strange, not just the usual pregnancy discomfort, but something deeper and more unsettling. Then came the vomiting. I couldn't keep anything down, not even water. I lost weight when I should have been gaining it. Dustin was worried and we went to the doctor multiple times, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong. At around 24 weeks, things took a turn for the worse. I collapsed in our bathroom one night, barely conscious. Dustin rushed me to the hospital, and the doctors realized my body was severely dehydrated and malnourished. My blood pressure was dangerously low, my organs were starting to struggle, and they were concerned about the baby's development. I was admitted immediately. Tests were run, fluids were given, and I was monitored around the clock, and that's when they found something shocking. Traces of toxic substances in my system. They were not lethal in small doses, but were enough to cause serious harm over time. The doctors asked if I had been consuming anything unusual, and it clicked. Chelsea's teas, her supplements, the things she had been pushing on me for weeks. Dustin and I were horrified. The doctors confirmed that whatever I had been ingesting had slowly been poisoning me, causing all my symptoms. Some of the herbs Chelsea had given me were known to cause complications in pregnancy, including premature labor and organ stress. I was furious, but more than anything, I was terrified for my baby. At 24 weeks, viability was still uncertain, and I did not know if my child would survive this. From that moment on, I was placed in critical care. The doctors did everything they could to stabilize me, but I was too weak to leave the hospital. I was given strict dietary restrictions, constant monitoring, and a high-risk pregnancy care team. I had to be on bed rest for the remainder of my pregnancy, hooked up to IVs and machines that made sure my baby was getting enough nutrients. I felt helpless, knowing that the damage had already been done. Chelsea acted like she had done nothing wrong. When Dustin confronted her, she insisted she had only been trying to help and that natural remedies can't hurt anyone. She refused to believe that her so-called medicine had nearly killed me. She even tried to visit me in hospital, acting like she was a concerned mother-in-law, but I refused to see her. I couldn't stand the thought of her anywhere near me after what she had done. The rest of my pregnancy was a blur of fear and exhaustion. I had to accept that I was no longer in control of my own body. Every day was a waiting game, praying that my baby would stay inside long enough to grow stronger. The guilt ate at me. If I had just refused Chelsea's tease, if I had listened to my instincts, maybe none of this would have happened. But it was too late for what ifs. All I could do was hope that my child would survive the damage that had been done. Dustin never left my side. He blamed himself for convincing me that his mother meant well. He was angry more than I had ever seen him before, but that anger did not fix anything. It didn't undo the months of damage. It did not erase the fact that I had been robbed of a normal, healthy pregnancy. It did not change the reality that I had spent weeks unknowingly poisoning myself because I trusted someone I shouldn't have. I don't know if Chelsea ever truly understood the gravity of what she did. I don't know if she ever felt guilty or regretted her actions. All I knew was that my life and my child's life would never be the same because of her obsession with these remedies. And that was something I could never forgive. Despite everything, Chelsea acted like she was the real victim. She told Dustin she was heartbroken that she was not able to experience the joy of pregnancy with me. She wanted to go baby shopping, have spa days, take cute grandma to be pictures. Instead, I had ruined everything by being too delicate. She saw nothing wrong with what she had done and refused to believe that her teas and remedies had anything to do with my condition. According to her, I was just overreacting and blaming her for things that were not her fault. She even went around telling people I had a weak constitution, making it sound like I was just being dramatic. She said that women had been drinking herbal teas for centuries and that I was acting like I had been poisoned with arsenic. She conveniently ignored the fact that actual medical professionals confirmed that the toxins in my body came from the very things she gave me. She painted herself as the victim in all of this, talking about how she missed out on bonding with me during my pregnancy. As if that was not enough, she had the audacity to demand an apology. She told Dustin that I had ruined her first experience as a grandmother and that I needed to say sorry for making her feel like a bad person. She wanted me to take responsibility for shutting her out and making her look like a monster when all she ever wanted was to help. It was unbelievable. After everything she had done, after all the pain and suffering I went through, she genuinely thought I owed her an apology. She did not see the months I spent in a hospital bed. She didn't see the toll it took on my body. She didn't care that my baby was at risk because of her. All she cared about was how it made her feel. Dustin told me about her demands, and I felt a mix of rage and exhaustion. I didn't have the energy to fight with her. I barely had the energy to keep myself together. My body was weak and my mind was drained. All I wanted was to focus on my baby and make sure we made it through this in one piece. I did not have time for Chelsea's delusions. I did not have time for her pity party. I made it clear that I would not be apologizing. I would not be pretending like what she did was okay. I didn't care if she thought I was being ungrateful or rude. She nearly destroyed my pregnancy, and now she wanted to act like she was the one who had been hurt? No, I was not playing that game. But now family members are reaching out and telling me I should just let it go. They say Chelsea is set in her ways. They say she didn't mean any harm and that I should be the bigger person. They say that holding on to anger won't change what happened. Some even say that she was just trying to follow traditions and I shouldn't have been so quick to blame her. I don't know how to feel about it. Part of me wonders if I should just let it go and move on. Maybe it would be easier to just say sorry and get it over with. But another part of me refuses to let her get away with it. She put me in hospital. She risked my baby's life, and now she wants me to apologize for ruining her experience? AITA for refusing to apologize to my mother-in-law? Update 1. I refused to apologize. Dustin backed me up completely, making it clear that we would not be entertaining Chelsea's delusions. He saw firsthand what I went through and knew exactly who was responsible. There was no way he was going to let his mother manipulate the situation to make herself the victim. Chelsea, of course, did not take it well. She started calling and texting Dustin non-stop, switching between sobbing and screaming, begging and demanding. One minute she was heartbroken that he had abandoned her, and the next she was furious that he was choosing me over his own mother. It did not seem to cross her mind that she was the one who had done something unforgivable. To her, she was always right, and everyone else just did not understand. When Dustin stopped responding to her, Chelsea took things a step further. She started going around telling everyone I was taking her son and grandchild away from her. She made sure to paint herself as the perfect, loving mother and grandmother who had been cruelly cut off for no reason. She cried to anyone who would listen, making it sound like I had simply decided one day I did not want her in our lives. She twisted the story completely, leaving out the part where her home remedies had poisoned me and nearly killed my baby. Instead, she made it sound like I was just being petty and vindictive. At first, some of Dustin's extended family reached out to us, telling us that we should try to make amends. They said Chelsea was devastated and did not understand why we were treating her so harshly. But as we explained what had really happened, many of them started backing off. The more people learned the truth, the less they wanted to be involved with Chelsea's dramatics. Slowly, the number of people defending her started to shrink, and even those who had originally tried to stay neutral began to see that she was not some poor, heartbroken grandmother. She was a woman who had seriously endangered both me and my baby, and she still refused to take any responsibility for it. Chelsea, of course, did not take that well either. The more people distanced themselves, the more desperate she became. She started showing up at family events uninvited, loudly sobbing about how she was being punished for caring. She left long, rambling voicemails for Dustin about how she had always been a good mother, how she had raised him to be a good man, and how she couldn't believe he would treat her like this. She even showed up at our house once, banging on the door, wailing like someone had died. We did not open the door. After that, Dustin changed our locks and installed security cameras. Since her usual tactics were not working, Chelsea tried a new approach. She began reaching out to older relatives, playing the helpless victim, hoping they would pressure us into forgiving her. She called family members she hadn't spoken to in years, telling them exaggerated stories of how cruel we were being. She made it sound like she was a lonely, abandoned mother who had done nothing wrong. She even went as far as claiming she was sick from the stress, though when people asked for details, she conveniently changed the subject. When that did not work, she tried to escalate things further. She sent letters, long and dramatic, detailing how she was being erased from her grandchild's life. She even attempted to get a priest from her local church involved, hoping he would talk to us about the importance of family and forgiveness. But most people were either tired of her antics or unwilling to take her side without knowing the full story. Slowly but surely, Chelsea was running out of people to manipulate. Desperation only made her behavior worse. When she realized she couldn't sway our family, she turned to outsiders. She started talking to mutual acquaintances, neighbors, and even people from our old social circles. She exaggerated every detail, making it seem like she had been completely abandoned without reason. Some people pitied her, but most could see through the act. More than once, we heard about her trying to stir up sympathy from people who had no stake in our lives. It was exhausting, knowing that she was out there constantly trying to rewrite the past. At one point, she even tried to guilt-trip Dustin by bringing up his childhood. She reminisced about how she had sacrificed everything to raise him, how she had always been there for him, and how she never expected him to turn his back on her like this. It was manipulative and cruel, but Dustin was not falling for it. He reminded her in no uncertain terms that being a parent doesn't mean you get unlimited forgiveness for hurting your child's family. At this point, I don't know what Chelsea expected to happen. Did she really think that after everything she had done, we would welcome her back with open arms? That I would suddenly forget the months I spent in hospital bed, hooked up to machines, struggling to keep my baby alive? That I would magically erase the trauma of nearly losing everything because she decided she knew better than doctors? She still refuses to acknowledge what she did, still believes that she was just trying to help and that I was just being too sensitive. And because I refuse to let her rewrite the past, and because I refuse to let her back into our lives like nothing happened, she sees herself as the victim. She doesn't care about the damage she caused. She only cares about the consequences she's facing now. Dustin has made it clear that he has no intention of letting his mother back into our lives. As far as he's concerned, she made her choice when she decided her ego was more important than my health and our baby's safety, and honestly, I agree with him. But now Chelsea is more isolated than ever. I can't help but wonder if I should feel guilty. Family members tell me I should be the bigger person, that holding on to anger is not healthy, that she's a woman who doesn't understand what she did wrong. Part of me wonders if I should have just let it go, but another part of me refuses to forget what she put me through. Update 2. After weeks of silence, Chelsea suddenly reached out with what seemed like an apology. She sent a long, carefully worded letter to both me and Justin, saying she deeply regretted everything that happened and just wanted a chance to make things right. She wrote about how she missed us, how she couldn't sleep at night knowing we were upset with her, how she just wanted to be part of her grandchild's life. She even admitted, though in the most vague and non-committal way possible, that she may have overstepped with her home remedies and did not realize the consequences. But something about it felt off. It was not a real apology. Nowhere did she actually acknowledge what she did. Nowhere did she take responsibility for nearly killing me and my baby. Instead, she focused on how sad and lonely she was, making the entire thing about her feelings rather than the damage she caused. Dustin was not buying it either. He wanted to believe she had changed, but deep down, we both knew better. We decided to give it time, to see if she was truly remorseful or if this was just another manipulation tactic. It did not take long to get our answer. A few days later, when we did not immediately respond to her letter, Chelsea's patience ran out. The sorrowful, apologetic mother act disappeared, and the angry, self-righteous version of her took its place. She started reaching out to family members again, this time with a new story, one where she had begged for forgiveness, and we had cruelly ignored her. She twisted the situation completely, making it sound like we were being unfair and punishing her for a simple mistake. Chelsea cried to anyone who would listen, telling them that she had humbled herself, written an emotional letter, and was now being shut out by her ungrateful son and his controlling wife. The fact that she was the one who nearly killed me, the fact that she had refused to take responsibility for months, conveniently left out. She ramped up the dramatics in a way that only Chelsea could. She told people she was sick from the stress, acting as if she was the real victim in all of this. She started making passive-aggressive posts online about children who abandoned their mothers and grandparents who are unfairly pushed out of their grandkids' lives. She even told a few people that we were brainwashing our child to hate her before they were even old enough to understand who she was. Chelsea also took to showing up uninvited to family events, putting on her best performance as the heartbroken grandmother. She made a big show of sighing dramatically and clutching old baby clothes, looking around sadly as if expecting us to appear and give her a warm embrace. When people asked how she was doing, she would launch into an exaggerated monologue about how she had lost everything because of a simple misunderstanding. Her latest stunt was trying to rope in family elders, hoping they would pressure us to let her back into our lives. She reached out to Dustin's great aunt, who had always been a neutral party, and spun her usual tale of sorrow. She even showed up at her house unannounced, crying on the porch and claiming she had nowhere else to turn. Luckily, the great aunt had heard the real story from other relatives and was not falling for it. She told Chelsea she needed to take responsibility instead of making excuses, which, of course, sent Chelsea into another round of self-pity. Some family members bought into her sob story, but many others saw through it. The ones who had already distanced themselves remained indifferent, unwilling to be dragged back into her drama. Even some of the people who had originally defended her began to back away, realizing that her apology was just another attempt at manipulation. Then came the gifts. Chelsea, likely realizing that guilt-tripping alone was not working, started sending packages to our home. They were not thoughtful gifts, just random baby items, stuff she had clearly picked up last minute, like cheap baby clothes with tags still on them, and bottles of formula we had never planned on using. It felt less like a genuine attempt to make amends and more like another way to insert herself back into our lives while ignoring the real issue. Dustin sent them all back unopened, which only fueled her outrage even more. It was exhausting, but at the same time, it was predictable. Chelsea was not sorry for what she did. She was sorry she was facing consequences, and now that we were not playing into her version of reality, she was scrambling to rewrite the narrative. I heard from a friend that Chelsea had even started attending a local support group for estranged parents, where she conveniently left out the part about poisoning me. She painted herself as a loving mother and grandmother who had been unfairly cut off, using the group as another audience to perform for. When my friend, who happened to be at the same community center, overheard her talking about a daughter-in-law who turned her son against her, it was clear that Chelsea had no intention of ever taking accountability. The situation escalated even further when she tried to make a dramatic appearance at Dustin's workplace. She showed up unannounced, demanding to speak with him, and made a scene when security wouldn't let her in. She cried and yelled about how she was being kept away from her family and how Dustin needed to wake up and stop letting me control him. He was mortified when he found out, and it only reinforced his decision to keep her out of our lives. At this point, it was clear that Chelsea will never change. She will never truly understand that what she did was wrong, and she will never stop playing the victim when things do not go her way. But the question is, how much longer will she keep this up? And more importantly, will she ever let us live in peace? Update 3. A few weeks have passed since my last update. A lot has happened, and honestly, I don't even know where to start. The biggest thing, of course, is that I gave birth. It was supposed to be one of the happiest moments of my life, but Chelsea managed to taint even that. I had made it explicitly clear to the hospital that I did not want her anywhere near me. Dustin and I were on the same page, and we told the nurses and staff not to allow her inside under any circumstances. But somehow she still found a way to get in. I still don't know how she managed it. Maybe she lied. Maybe she found someone willing to let her through. But what I do know is she showed up completely unannounced and made everything about her. I was exhausted, still recovering, holding my newborn when she barged in. I don't even remember exactly what she said first because I was in shock. But it was something along the lines of how she deserved to be there because she was the grandmother. Dustin immediately got between us, telling her to leave, but she wouldn't budge. Instead, she started crying, full-on wailing, about how I was robbing her of her grandchild and how cruel I was being by keeping her out of the experience. The nurses quickly got security involved, and while she was being escorted out, she managed to cause even more of a scene, screaming about how I was an ungrateful, selfish woman who was taking her son and grandchild away from her. I should have just ignored her, but in that moment I was so overwhelmed that I started crying too. I had just given birth. I was physically and emotionally drained. Now I had to deal with this insanity. After that, Dustin and I made it absolutely clear she was done. We were completely cutting her off. No contact, no updates, nothing. And surprisingly, the rest of the family followed suit. They had seen enough of her behavior over the past year to know that she was not going to stop. Nobody was willing to entertain her victim narrative anymore. But the scariest part, she almost hurt my baby, and I do not think it was accidental. At one point before security arrived, she reached out for my baby without my permission and tried to grab him from my arms. I flinched away, and that's when she got this look on her face that I'll never forget. It was not sadness. It was not disappointment. It was frustration, like she was furious that I was not just handing over my baby like she was entitled to him. When I pulled away, she reached again, too forcefully, and almost knocked my baby out of my arms. That's when Dustin physically stepped in and pushed her back. I do not even want to think about what could have happened if she had actually made contact. Now she's completely alone. Nobody talks to her, nobody visits her, and the worst part? She still thinks she's the victim in all of this. She still tries to spin the story, claiming that I overreacted, that I manipulated Dustin into cutting her off. And I'm trying to erase her from our lives out of spite. But the truth is, she did this to herself. She tried to get other family members to take her side, but that backfired spectacularly. Dustin's cousins, aunts, even some family friends completely shut her down. Nobody wants to be associated with someone who tried to poison a pregnant woman and then almost hurt a newborn. Last I heard, she had tried showing up at a few family events uninvited, only to be turned away every time. She also sent a few emails and letters, but they all had the same manipulative tone. How she was suffering, how she did not deserve this, how she just wanted to be a loving grandmother. Not once did she acknowledge the damage she caused. Not once did she apologize. And honestly, even if she did, I wouldn't believe it. And then just when I thought she might finally give up, she pulled one last stunt. A few weeks ago, Dustin and I got a notification that someone had tried to contact our baby's pediatrician, pretending to be a concerned grandparent. They were asking about health updates, vaccinations, and any medical issues. Thankfully, the clinic followed strict privacy laws and did not give out any information. But it was still terrifying. We had to make sure all our child's records were locked down even further. And we filed a formal complaint to ensure she wouldn't be able to pull that again. That was the final straw for Dustin. He had already cut her off, but this was beyond desperate. He sent her a final message telling her to never contact us again in any way, shape, or form. And if she did, we would take legal action. She has not responded directly, but I know she's still out there playing the victim, trying to get sympathy from anyone who will listen. Part of me wonders if she'll ever truly stop. Or will she keep lurking, waiting for an opportunity to force her way back into our lives? Update 4. It's been a few months since the last update, and Chelsea's absence brought a peace we hadn't truly experienced before. Without her interference, we focused on raising our baby and adjusting to parenthood without the weight of her drama. For a while, it seemed like she had accepted her place outside our lives. No calls, no messages, no unwanted visits. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't last forever. Chelsea had never been one to let things go, especially when she felt slighted. Weeks later, we heard from the extended family that Chelsea had made one last desperate move. She had gone to a lawyer, claiming grandparents' rights, but with her history, she didn't have a case. The attempt failed before it even started, and that was when she realized she had lost. No one was defending her. No one was forcing us to let her back in. The door was shut for good. And then Chelsea went silent. No more messages, no more pleas through family members, no more attempts to worm her way back into our lives. She had finally realized there was no way forward. Life moved on. There were moments when the weight of what had happened still lingered, reminders of how close we had come to losing everything because of her. But they became fewer and further between. Our home remained peaceful, our child safe. We were free from the chaos she had once brought into our lives. The fear that she might resurface never completely disappeared, but we were ready no matter what. We would never let her harm us again. And in the end, that was enough. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.